My
Okay.
my phone screen jumped, and I had to get back to the original screen. And one of the other things that we'll put out there, and we'll invite you to do if you would, is, pick up on our new videos on our YouTube channel. And one of the things we're looking to do, since we've stopped traveling, as Jeannie said, is, finances become a bit of a challenge to keep everything moving and going and expanding. And so one of the things we're working toward is monetizing our YouTube channel. And in order to do that, they have certain standards. They have to have so many videos and so many hours of watching and blah, blah, blah. And so if you would, jump on. We've been putting more and more out there. Yesterday, Jeannie put out a meditation CD called Wellness to Stillness that up until now has been a paid product. We, a few months ago, put out the Why Is This Happening to Me Again, a full 3-hour version, which again used to be a paid product. So we're putting more and more out there to invite people to participate in our YouTube channel. And when we get to a level that fits their standards, then they'll actually start to pay us for that, just for people watching our materials, putting enough materials up there to attract people. And so it's kind of on the generous side, and we appreciate that. And so it would be a help if you would spend time daily, weekly, monthly, whatever, listening to videos, clicking a like on them. That helps that people are liking them, and making a comment. So we're just kind of scrambling and looking since we've been 4 years that we haven't been on the road. It's and Heartland's been closed, and of course, the taxes go on. The electric bill runs about $500 a month, and you can't just turn it off. So that's sort of put a bit of a drain on things. And so if this is supporting you, I invite you to support us. Whether if you're not in a position to support financially, pass it on to somebody. Send a link from a video that you watch to somebody, or send a copy of a radio show or a worksheet or what have you. So. And if you're in a position and you're benefiting from this work, then we invite you to drop something in the collection plate that helps us keep it all rocking. And beyond that, is Susan with? Is anybody out there with a hand up, Jeannie?
The only hands up were the hands that were up with talking with Dr. Tim, and Susan is one of them. If you want me to turn her on.
Okay, well, we might want to find another way to say that, but sure.
Okay, I'll turn her microphone on.
There you go.
Hi, guys. Hi.
Hey, young lady, how are you?
Okay, how are you?
We're rocking. We're doing well. Doing well. A nice sunshiny but cold day here. And a couple of thoughts I wanted to share with you.
Okay.
A little while back, we had talked about, the native species plants and how your neighbors had complained about your backyard because it didn't look neat and orderly like trimmed yards are supposed to look. And one of the thoughts I had, I was doing a little more research on Telemy's work with national parks, and where the city came in and forced you to cut it down, especially if it's native species. And I don't know if that was a focus that you had going on in your yard, but you can go on to Telemy's website, National Parks. What's the name of it? Anyway, you can go on there, register your property as a national park, and that might make a difference as to whether or not the city might, interfere with what you're choosing to do with your land. If you're doing something that really, truly is to, in fact, it might be something to even, we've been talking about to neighbors and such, to present that, maybe we need to let our yards get a little, what the world calls messier, but have some native species so our insect and food supply doesn't collapse. And that might be a way to talk to the city legally, and maybe even, the neighbor who complains say, well, maybe you should try this. Look, watch this video. Here's what we're doing, why we're doing it. Just a thought.
Oh, great. That's a great idea. It's a very touchy relationship with our neighbors. And so I didn't want to aggravate it, but what I did do was I didn't have a garden last year. I just didn't have the juice for it. So
Right.
the whole area is fenced in, and I let that go, and it grew up. It's been a wonderful habitat, and it's all native stuff in there,
Awesome.
as my whole yard was. And they didn't complain, partly because there's a tree that blocks their view, and I'm not sure they even know I did that. But I think they
Right.
figured they had complained enough, and they couldn't keep complaining. This year I want to have a garden again. So the other business is
Nice.
back, in that's a great idea. I love that idea. And with Michael living with us, he might help us do it.
Perfect. Yeah, well, this
Yeah.
this little plot that's only 25 feet by 100 that we're prepping, and we'll be putting pictures of it on the website soon. We just got it fully covered with cardboard and put some wood chips on it to start the breakdown of the grass. And we're getting ready to bring in a dump truck load of soil and composted hardwood chips to start building soil for these native plants that will be coming in April, or maybe a little sooner than that,
Wow,
March,
that's
April.
Great.
So
That's great.
I'm excited about that. So that was one thought I had, and the other one, you had sent me a link to a video of a man who's talking about breathing through our noses, and
Right.
he's got a really stern, don't breathe through your mouth, but there is a reason, I think, why there's a passageway to the lungs through the breath as well, and I'm absolutely with him on, day to day, breathe through your nose. It's not a healthy thing to breathe through your mouth all the time. But one of the things that happens when you breathe through your mouth, and he sort of alludes to this, is there are passages in the sinus cavities that feed oxygen to the brain and keep it rocking, keep it firing. And, you've heard me say many, many times that one of the keys to healing is you've got to be out of your mind. And so breathing through the mouth tends to let some of the oxygen that otherwise is sort of force-fed to the brain go, and that thing kind of shuts up. And through the mouth, we tend to access our emotional nature, and with that, when those emotions are aroused by the mind getting quiet and having more access, it tends to, or at least my take would be, it tends to drain off the emotional trauma that a lot of people carry around. So that's why the breath, the still point process is done with through the mouth. But you can certainly do still point breathing and do it through your nose. And I've found that it doesn't reach quite the same emotional release places that breathing through the mouth does, but absolutely you can do it through your nose, for sure.
Well, I have been sort of doing that, but I felt like a fraud. One of my issues is an imposter, being an imposter. So I thought, well, I'm inventing my own method here. Basically, it's just counting breaths and getting really, really calm, and then letting the breath remain deep, but kind of forgetting about it. And that's the best I've done. I don't know that I've ever stopped at the bottom of the breath or not. I tend to think about it, which is exactly what we don't want to do. If I think
that's what
about
breathing through the nose does. It keeps the mind going.
Well, I certainly was doing a lot of thinking with my mouth open, Michael. I'm a basket case in this area. I was swallowing and worrying and wondering how I could keep it open because it naturally clamps shut and all this business. Plus, I was worrying about bacteria in my teeth when my gums dry out and periodontal disease and all this overthinking with my mouth wide open. So I am very, very far from doing, what others seem to be able to do. And I hand it to them, you included.
Sounds like maybe some worksheets on worry. That's an old reality that maybe could be forgiven and let go of. And as opposed to, and I'd invite you to look at who implied to you or told you or how you made up this thing about being an imposter. And I'd substitute that with, I'm being an original. I'm going to originate. We're designed as human beings to originate. And who knows? I mean, when I was trained in breath work, when I came into, discovered and started to teach still point breathing, I totally went against the quote-unquote rules that I'd been taught, and a whole new world opened up in that, and that was the world of the still point. The breath work that I was originally trained in, if you went into still point, it was called holding your breath. You had a jam in the ribs, and you were forced to breathe. Oh, you're going unconscious. Breathe. It's like, no. This is the core of the still point, where high-speed process happens, where you go into a superconductor state and can just let go of all kinds of things. But you can also reach that with nose breathing. Yes, I've found that it's more efficient, more effective to do it with mouth breathing, but if those other things are a concern, then go for it.
Oh, great, thanks. Yeah, I wondered if it was okay to send you that. It's sort of like, confront those with. I have issues about that too.
Confront me anytime you like. If you've got an alternative thought, I'm here to hear it. If you've got alternative evidence, I can't take in everything in the world, so if you will be my eyes and my ears and my brain to expand how I can see things, I'm always wide open for it and appreciative of it.
Okay, well, that's very good of you. That's wonderful. It's funny, when you said this imposter thing, I got it. It's like I did an instant worksheet in my head. I remember my mom looking at me and saying, "Who do you think you are?"
There you go.
Whatever I thought I was too big for her britches.
Was not acceptable, yeah. It's that old message, that first message power person gives so many people is there's something wrong with you. And it's a lie.
Yeah. Right.
And so I support you standing up as an original and originating the creation of your life. That's what we're here to support people doing.
That's wonderful. I love it. And I'm doing it, but I get these twinges now and again. Like being a pianist, my mother used to say, "Why are you doing all that practicing? Pianists are a dime a dozen. Everybody can do it. What are you working so hard for?" So that's another one. Yeah, I don't know why she was so like that. I'm not sure why. I've had a lot of talks with her. Dr. Tim said, "You start talking to your mother the way," maybe you said it. I guess you were the one, because you reminded me about Magda and her grandfather. It hasn't come out like the grandfather one, not at all. But I have gone through the physical symptoms of healing. It have included nausea, just nausea, talking to my mother and having her talk to me and getting to this place of feeling just absolutely sick. And I haven't got past that. I sort of
sounds highly successful.
Oh, I'm glad you think so,
Sounds
Michael.
like a highly successful process. Well, you're dumping toxicity. That's why whatever you're dumping as you're going through that processing, when it hits the stomach says, "I got to get this out of here." So you're successfully dumping and moving through things. And, as we said before, the symptoms of healing are not always Dr. Feelgood. But it's an interesting message that you were given, and it sounds like maybe Mom's message was always one of negativity. No matter what, we're going to find something wrong with what you're doing. Even when you're working hard to accomplish something, we'll make it something wrong. And probably she had a power person that was always giving her the message that whatever she did was in error.
Oh my God, Michael, you absolutely got your finger right on it. It just popped into my head. Of course, she wasn't like that in general. She was so loving and giving to us in the ways that she could. That did not include physical touch. But she did comb our hair. She would pull and yank, but she tended us. And, she took us to piano lessons, and she sat and sewed while we did our piano lessons. And she took every chance to give us opportunities to get experience as musicians and stuff. But what happened to her, she was the only child of a very poor door-to-door salesman. Her father never went past 8th grade. He was a door-to-door salesman. The Depression hit, and she was at Wellesley College on a full scholarship and absolutely loving being at college. And he pulled her out and said, "You got to go to work. We need your help supporting the household." Mm-hmm. And she left college and never went back and was heartbroken.
Ouch.
And she educated herself. She used to read voraciously, and that was the thing. She'd go to the library in the summer and get a stack of books, and she'd disappear. She went into her books, and our competition were the books. And when she came out of there, sometimes she was so far away. It was very hard for her to come back into the family and focus on these brats, these little kids who wanted her attention and were acting terribly. So I really feel for her.
No, they were just acting like little kids.
Yeah, well, basically her father was saying, "Who do you think you are?" He used to say things like hoity-toity, and he used to uppity. He used to talk about people who pretended to be above their station, and I'm sure she got that. So, man, you've done your...
Well, it sounds... it sounds like the message around practicing music would be a reflection of the effort she's putting into Wellesley and learning and growing and expanding into something bigger, bigger than Dad, and then having that frustrated torn out from under her by being removed from school. And probably a reflection of her unresolved disappointment when she says to you, "Well, why are you putting all that effort in? Effort's not rewarded. It's just wasted because it's going to be crash."
Yeah, I think so.
And that's a powerful message to unravel in the mind of a child. Even if that child is now a few decades on in years, that'd be powerful stuff to let loose of.
The weird thing is, those messages came when I was very young. When I started really making my place in the world, concertizing and writing music and getting performances, she was the first one to say, "Oh my God, this is so wonderful. How do you do it? I'm so proud of you." She was very, very supportive, and so was my dad. But those messages you get as a little kid, they have a different way of getting in there and sitting in there.
Well, when you realize, and one of the key components of a power person dynamic is that this is survival. And so when a child gets a message from a caretaker that literally in the child's mind it could mean the end of life. Gee, if I'm here crying and I need something and my caretaker doesn't show up, what happens to me? So those messages are definitely very powerful, and energetically, if the child steps into that survival mode, the energy field opens and everything in the environment, the good, the bad, and the ugly, is just energetically taken on. Whereas when you get up to an age where you've reached reason, you can reject ideas. Certainly, they don't have the same kind of impact, even if the messages are there. They're not as, at 10, that when mom says this, it's not your survival. At 3, child doesn't know it isn't survival, and that's one of the key components of, do we open and just, absorb the energies from the environment, or do we look at the energy of the environment and say, thanks, but I'll pass on that? The 3-year-old can't say, thanks, but I'll pass on that.
That's true.
So as you see those kinds of things, that sounds like perfect worksheet material.
Yeah.
And have you looked at the new worksheet?
No, I haven't.
Oh.
I have not.
Well, we created a simplified version for the workshop that we did last week for a physician here in Johnson City, and I abbreviated it significantly. Took out several of the more complex pieces of the puzzle. And I think it's going to be something like for your support group that will be easier for people to be introduced to and to carry out. So I thought I had sent it to you, but since I haven't, I am actually just getting ready to hit the button.
Isn't it on the website?
It is. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I can go on there.
But it's now also in your inbox, in your text box.
Oh, you're Mr. Greased Lightning. Thanks.
So,
yeah.
There it
interesting
be.
Stuff going on in our group. Yeah, okay. I just
Tell us about it.
And he's making changes to it already.
Oh,
yeah, the worksheet's back on the plate.
All right,
I woke up
I've
this morning with guidance to just change a couple of words. There'll be minor changes, I suspect, but there are going to be a few to come.
All right. Well, I'm putting it to print, several copies right now, and it's one page. I trust. Yeah.
One page, yes. So tell us about the support group.
Oh well, it's just fodder for. I talked about it with Dr. Tim. So, one of my patients.
You're getting the blessing of people giving you opportunities to learn forgiveness.
Right. One of the women on there is prickly, and of course, I'm used to getting pricked. So she gives me opportunities to deal with being pricked. Little barbs.
Uh-huh.
So I'm getting a chance to...
So one of those people that your mom talked about.
Yeah. Well, one of the people that turns into my mom for short little flashes. My mom when she was in her scared and not so well punishing mode. The big outcome of talking to my mother has been that she keeps apologizing to me for how she treated us. She regrets very much. She says she's very sorry. But the end goal I still have is to have the capacity to allow her to touch me and to trust that. And I don't. And when I get I do that goal, and I look at it from all kinds of angles, and all I end up is feeling sick to my stomach. I've got a lot of work to do left on that.
Good toxicity letting go. So the question I would ask in that context is, so have you pardoned her yet?
Oh, sure, Michael. I've pardoned her millions of times, but forgiven her, I'm not so sure. It isn't clear.
Okay. Well, remember that pardoning is, okay, so Mom, I have compassion for you. I can see the straitjacket you were in and why you behaved the way you did. So I'm going to just let go of it. I'll let you off the hook for that. And the forgiveness work would be how I'm going to go inside myself and clean up the end result of what's going on in my mind and body from the interaction between you, Mom, and what I carried in my structure.
Yeah. No, the business of feeling like her victim or blaming, I think I'm done with that. I don't want to fool myself. In fact, compassion is huge. I can see why she was the way she was. But it's still in my structure, as you say. It hasn't gone out. In fact, I'm doing that cleanse you recommended, Michael. I'm doing the gentle version. I've got about 3 weeks to go, probably. It's very gentle, but I'm telling you, it's doing things.
Things are moving. Nice. How's your skin doing?
I don't understand this. I went back to the doctor. The skin's much better, but if I scratch, like I scratch my shin, even if it does not itch, it will start itching like gangbusters. I can scratch any part of my body to see if it's going to itch, and it will itch. What the heck is that?
You're scratching yourself. Stop it.
I know, but it loves it. It wants more and more. Is this the way people have always been and I never noticed?
Well, I think what you're finding is that there are irritating energies that are sitting in that layer of your structure, and your structure probably wants to stir it, release it, and so that even though there's the deleterious effect of scratching, it wants to stir that energy up, and as you cleanse and clear out what doesn't belong. Actually, that's one of the words that you'll see. I'll send you when it's finished. I've been working on it just this morning, but down at the bottom of the worksheet, the last line says to breathe and smile. But I actually changed that, the last line, right just before you get into the definitions. You said you'd printed it. So this morning I awakened with, just like guidance to change the last line of the worksheet to breathe love, cleanse, and bathe in oxygen. So there'll be that little change in it.
Okay. All right. Bathe in oxygen. Well, I'm going to have to feel for that one. Yeah. Thank you.
Sweet. Well, anything else exciting happening in your world?
Luke has been sober for 3 months.
All right. Congratulations, Luke.
Group, and he's joined a group of students who volunteer at a children's hospital, taking care of young kids in there, reading to them,
wow,
sitting with them, playing with them, and
what an awesome turnaround.
Well, I'm just hopeful, and he also is very tough in a great way with Jacob. He says, Jacob, addicts lie. You are lying. Cut it out. I know you're using. I don't want to talk to you until you stop. And Jacob has improved and cleaned up his act a lot. I think he's still using, but he's much more polite to us. He even apologized to his mother for not having come to her wedding with the new husband. He said, I'm sorry I treated you all that way. I'm hoping this isn't an act, because I know he's good at acting and he may want something. I'm suspicious, Michael. I got to watch it. But I love it, what he's doing. So 2 boys in improving.
Well, Luke is the big brother, right?
Yeah.
So, it sounds like he's having an influence. We'll hold the space that influence carries through until, Jacob is really ready to look at some of the core stuff that he's going to have to look at when he lets go of drugs and alcohol.
Yep. Right. And one thing you said, Michael, I passed on to Luke, and it caused a real change. You had said addiction very often, most often, and maybe always the result of trauma. And I said that to Lukey, and he said, oh, my God. And I said, so give yourself credit and don't be tough on yourself. This is what you went through, and you had reasons to anesthetize yourself. Anesthetize with a T.
Yeah, absolutely.
So he said that helped him a lot to take the blame off himself and to acknowledge that things had been really bad at home. So,
well, and
to
add to that, perhaps another level of it would be to, I don't know if he's been exposed to the power person idea, but to explain the power person in that those behaviors are passed on, and as he's facing those things, underneath those behaviors, there's all the pain that was absorbed from the interaction with the power person in those early years.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when
talk to him about that.
Good, cool, sweet. So, but just going back and working with kids, that's awesome.
Yeah, I know. He says, I want to be a father, and I want to do it the way I wanted it. So, and then I said, but watch it. When you get under stress, Michael Ryce says, you're going to be triggered, and you want to do what your dad did that you hated the most. Just be on the lookout. And he said, I will.
Sweet. And one of those things was to put him down. And that's where he's got to lift himself up, to change that thought pattern and lift himself up in those moments of stress, rather than succumb to the power person messages. And, what a better way to do that than to become a powerfully contributing member to the community and going in and supporting kids, helping. That's awesome.
I know. I'm
we actually watched a movie the other night. Gene, do you remember the name of that film with the ocelot in it? Might be an interesting one for him to watch. But we'll find the name of it. Wildcat. Yeah, Wildcat was on Amazon. And it's a story of a young man who's British, and he goes to war, and he just can't handle the pain of watching the trauma. And in particular, in the movie, he talks about as a soldier in one of the war-torn insanities, he has to stop a man who's carrying his child to bury the child, and the pain of that for him. And what he does is he volunteers in the rainforest to take care of animals. And it's really powerful to watch the things he has to process and deal with. It's a powerful demonstration in the ocelot, his relationship with this animal species that's threatened, and they're there to support them and take care of them. It actually takes it was what they called a rewilding project, and so they were taking these abandoned baby ocelots, small cats that when they're just born look like little furry house cats, but turn into a pretty powerful animal when they grow. But literally his challenges in spending 2 years pretty much alone, or mostly alone. He has a relationship with someone and some of the trauma that goes on there, but he spends, I think it was about a year and a half with one animal, and the animal, because of poachers in the forest, ends up hitting a piece of wire that fires a gun and kills it. So he's got a lot to deal with there, and he goes back and takes on another baby ocelot, and it takes 2 years to rewild them. And it was just like his healing, his making that contribution was part of his healing. It was really powerful.
Wow.
So, and it really demonstrates the kind of pain, the kind of pain and trauma he had to deal with. And, it was a powerful way that he moved in that direction. So, but that's awesome that he's working with kids, and that's just so amazing.
Isn't it? And it's with peers. It's not just by himself. He's got some buddies.
Right.
And this is new for him, to make friends, not just go get drunk together.
Well, it sounds like he's now stepping into the gregarious, powerful, contributing part of his genetic history.
Yeah. I guess I should stop being nervous. I got to do a worksheet. I'm fearing that he'll relapse or something. Got to stop that. Picture him healthy, well, strong.
It would probably be good to, that might just be the hem of the garment he needs, that in moments of temptation, he can turn to that energy, knowing you're there holding that space, and that might be what uplifts him past the moments of temptation that are going to come, because those moments of temptation are going to come, and that's part of the recovery project. And why they say you have to do meetings, you have to stay connected with people. So with your sweet connection with him, that might be one of the main things that makes a difference as he's going through these layers that he has to go through. And and I hear what his family story was, it's there's some pretty tough stuff there.
Well, thanks,
it
Michael.
sounds like he's on the right track. That's awesome. So delighted to hear it. You put so much support and energy and life force into supporting he and Jacob. It's pretty awesome. Congratulations.
Thanks. Wish I could have done more, but it's somehow seeping in anyway.
Yay. And it sounds like it's spilling over to his brother. So, whatever time it takes, we'll hold the space that it keeps moving in the right direction. You know, that thought from the Course comes up that's, I think, so profound when you realize the energetic impact of it, and that is that millions yet unborn are going to benefit from the work you do. Millions. I mean, there's so many grandparents that are so busy and so tied up in their careers or their niceties or their stuff or their trips or their, vacations in Florida or whatever. And you've dedicated so much life energy to these two young men. It's a powerful gift to give them.
Thanks, Michael.
Yeah.
It's been my pleasure. I like them.
It is pretty awesome, isn't it? Well, and it sounds like you've given that same gift to Jonathan as he's gone through his layers, so that's pretty amazing.
He's amazing. He is amazing. Yeah.
How's he doing with his practice? Are things softening for him?
Yeah, well, he told them at the hospital that he didn't want to do certain things and he wanted to do more of other things, and and they said, we'll take you any way we can get you. He's considered the mayor of the operating room.
Oh, that's awesome.
His favorite thing is to jump in, and Jeannie would be interested in this. Placenta previa is a condition where the young mother is maybe losing her baby and possibly her life because the placenta pulls away from the abdominal wall or wherever it is. Yeah. And they often bleed to death. And he's formed a team of himself and two other doctors and two gynecologists and a urologist, which is what he is. And when they get that case, they call the team, and the three of them work on the woman. Almost no blood loss, no loss of life, and the baby is fine. They've actually created this method of saving the mother and baby that's being published all over the place now.
That's awesome.
He's doing
I got tears coming on that one.
Isn't that something? He's doing the work that he absolutely loves. He's overworked, and the hospital is a mess, too, and he bawled him out. He said, I'm leaving if you don't correct this. And they called the whole administration together, and they said, we're working on it. He's a powerhouse in there.
Cool. Well, 2022, more women in America died in childbirth than at any time in American history.
I didn't know that.
So, I've been doing some research on being pro-life as opposed to being pro-birth. Many circles, if you look back in history, slavers were some of the most powerful pro-birth people that there were, but they weren't pro-life, and a lot of people died.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
And they needed to be pro-birth because they needed replacements for their slaves.
Mm-hmm.
And today, if you look in a lot of the states where they're supposedly pro-life, if you look at the statistics, they are maternity deserts, the same way as there are food deserts. And
I believe it.
The legislation that these supposed pro-life people are passing are totally pro-birth and have nothing to do with pro-life, and kids are starving, mothers are dying, children are dying. It isn't pro-life at all. It's just pro-birth. You got to have more babies. You got to have more bodies. And what we need to do in our culture, my take and the writing I've been doing in that direction, is we need to move in the direction of actually being pro-life. We have policies that, there's no such thing. I mean, the wealthiest country in the world has, I forget what the numbers are. I've looked them up and, put them into an article. The number of women that live in maternal deserts where they can't get maternity care, where their babies can't get care, the number of kids that are in starvation mode in this country of wealth, and most of them are supposedly pro-life states.
It's ironic, isn't it?
We need a change. Well, it's the old political game of sophistry. Remember, the sophist was the Greek person who was a philosopher who traveled around Greece, and for big bucks, the children of the wealthy, how to lie and make their lies sound true. And that whole game is so tied into that sophistry, and it's about wealth hoarding, and it's about money. And to have money, you need bodies to work, and just like the slavers did. They were very pro-birth. But their babies didn't last very long, and they didn't live very well, and neither did the mothers. And so, to me, we need to become, it's just a matter of becoming conscious. It's an old habit in millions of minds. And we just need to become conscious, do some forgiveness work, and bring correction, and actually set up policies that are consistent with pro-life. Like, we make sure that, that county out there that only has a few people has a birthing center and has, medical care for that baby and that woman. Not just we're going to pass a law that says she's going to have that baby whether she likes it or not. That's like a stupid starting point to pretend to be pro-life when you don't follow through, and there's no care and there's no support. And after X number of days, if they're indigent, if they get X number of days of care after that baby's born, and then they're cut off, there's no medical support, there's no, there are just so many things that are insane about that whole game. It's just, one more place we need to wake up and bring human life, actual love into the process.
True.
So congratulations to Jonathan. That's awesome. That's so needed. That's probably, especially in these places where they are maternity deserts, that's probably one of the things that has contributed to this, these last few years being so deadly for pregnant women in America. It's crazy. The health outcomes are just tragic. I forget what number, we're like something like number 19 in developed countries, and we spend way over 200% more than any other country in the world. But we're number 19 in health outcomes. How bizarre is that? So that's probably exactly the kind of procedure that's going to, really spread and save a lot of lives. So congratulations, Jonathan. Thank you.
Going to have to teach others. They've been helicoptering mothers in from rural areas, and so the help is getting out there. But what they need is to train the doctors to do it out there.
Well, I look forward to the time when that procedure will just be ubiquitous.
Standard. Yep.
Standard of care.
Right. It takes 3 of them because the bleeding is phenomenal. The crisis is so sudden and so acute that they need 3 guys, 3 doctors, not men necessarily, but.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
What a contribution. When we see it all written up and showing up, we'll be able to say we knew Jonathan when.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's in the journals, but I don't think it's out there,
Yeah, very cool.
Okay, Michael.
Awesome, young lady. Well, we appreciate you.
Thanks.
Tell Tim we said hello.
I will.
All right, lots of love. Take care. All righty.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. I'm not sure if she put her hand up a second time or not, but I think that she might have. So, Linda, 541, you're on the air.
Hello, it is I.
Hey, welcome, young lady.
Yes, good day to you. I loved your whole conversation with Susan. I have a little message for Susan about reframing. One of the things that helped heal so much of my relationship with my mother and ongoing healing with her is reframing. And I was wondering if she ever had thought that her mother was down on her when she was little about practicing the piano because she didn't want her to feel the pain that she felt about being yanked out of Wellesley.
Yeah, that's a big piece of the puzzle, I think.
Yeah, because she was trying to protect the children. But we don't see that when we're little, and the parent doesn't see it at all. Because it's unconscious, or maybe doesn't see it at all.
Right. Well, and when a power person dynamic, when somebody plays out and acts out and speaks out of a power person dynamic, they don't have the same story for it that they had when it was done to them. When it was done to them, they see it as a tragedy, an offense, an attack, whatever it happens to be. But the brain, I'm realizing more and more that the brain, the mind, when it's just functioning as carbon-based memory, pretty much exists to make excuses for why we're doing what we're doing and making it somebody else's fault. And so when I do a power person dynamic, that when my power person did it to me, it was terrible, I construct a whole different reality. Oh, well, I'm only doing this because I'm protecting myself, or I'm helping them, or, there's a whole other story that goes along with it. And until we start applying forgiveness and collapse those stories and see what the underlying energy is and are able to process it out and forgive it, it tends to run the show. Even, the mind can make up all kinds of excuses for why it's doing what it's doing. So I think you're right on track there.
Yeah, and it also could be that she doesn't even know that she's, quote unquote, trying to protect the child because she's in the throes of the dynamics. What I'm trying to say is that maybe that too is a push down into her unconscious, and she doesn't even know that's what she's doing, or she might. Yeah, you don't know.
I just got a text from Susan that says Celinda's right, and I have thought about that. It's a good point. Thank you.
Oh, good. Yeah,
cool.
and it's not even about being right, is it, Michael and Jeannie? It's about just looking at it from a little twist of the kaleidoscope. Yeah, seeing what it looks like from another view. Just trying to get a little expansion on it. Yeah. Yeah,
Yay.
I've got a couple of other things to share with you if you're interested too.
Okay, how can we support you? What's happening?
Well, this is about Plum Fund. Have you heard of Plum Fund? It's one of those
No, I'm not familiar with it.
It's one of those crowdfunding sources. Now, I don't know now because this was 5 or 6 years ago, but it used to be that they didn't charge anything. The only thing they charged for is if if anybody made a donation, there was a certain amount that the credit card company that they used would take out for their service. Yeah. And that was it. But the 5% or whatever the other ones charged, and maybe some of them charged even more, Plum Fund didn't do that. And I had a really wonderful experience with Plum Fund. I wasn't ready to fund it, to do the work, to really get it going because I'm not on Facebook and everything. But for someone like you and Jeannie and the whyagain.org website, I would think that Plum Funding would possibly be.
I did look at that, and they charge 2.59% of whatever is donated, plus 49 cents per transaction.
Plus the so they've changed that since then. Okay. But I did have a really wonderful experience with the personnel there. They
cool.
And so I thought
we'll look at that. We haven't really
also
moved in the direction of looking at crowdfunding, but I'll take that into account.
Maybe it can just be put on the back burner and let it percolate a little bit and see what happens.
We'll see what happens.
Thought I had, when you gave Susan permission to change her breathing because she was a creator, an original instead of an imposter, and I wrote that down. I love it. I thought, well, I better fess up to Michael that I've already changed my breathing for Still Point. I have some
no fessing needed for me.
And because I do Qigong, there is a healing technique that you can do with Qigong, where the breathing technique is you breathe in through the nose, but you breathe out through the mouth. And as you breathe in through the nose, you see that life energy coming into you, healing life energy. And as you breathe out, you see this gray smoke or black smoke of whatever the toxicity is that the disease or whatever that you're trying to release, you're doing your best to release, you see it going out. You just visualize that. And since I tend to generate a lot of saliva in my mouth, and since I also tend to have a stuffed up left nostril a lot, which is a whole bunch of other worksheets they'll probably do on, I get a lot of drainage from it. And so by having my mouth open and not being able to swallow, I get a choking sensation. So I just started doing that. But I keep my mouth open. This is interesting. I keep my mouth open, and I just kind of close off with my palate, the back of my tongue, a little bit on the breath coming in through the mouth so that it kind of goes up into the nose. And then I release it on the exhale. I thought I'd share that in case anybody may be having difficulties of then breathe in through the mouth, the nose, and know that it's going down. You know, I visualize it also going down into my body at the same time, and my heart.
Cool.
Yeah. So I just thought I'd
One of the things you might want to look at with that chronic nasal thing is some specific sinus probiotics. There's actually one product I'm aware of called Sinus Complete. And the sinuses need probiotics. They need the life that's necessary. And, you know, if we've shot all kinds of chemicals up our noses and breathed all kinds of garbage, it can be hard on those probiotics that are designed to live in your nasal passages. So you might want to look at that, and you might find that will help with that stuffiness in that one nostril. Might be all you need.
Really, what I'm looking at right now is I mentioned to you that I take that ion product from Dr. Zach Bush. Well, he has an ion nasal spray as well. And I'm looking very much at possibly trying that to see if it has an effect. And there's a whole complex that I can get with, if I'm a member, with a 15% reduction. I think it's 10 now, but I'm grandmother, so I get it. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, you might want to just add some probiotics to whatever else you're doing. It might assist in clearing up that chronic sinus thing. So, awesome, young lady. Well, anything else on your mind for today?
Yes. When you and Susan were talking about the medical system in relation to pro-life as opposed to pro-birth, I was also thinking that the forcing of midwives into the medical matrix or legislating against the allowance of midwives is, to me, also a violation of pro-life.
Yeah, it's a serious problem. Yeah, I agree.
It is, and it really reminds me of the Inquisition and the witchcraft trials. Yeah,
it's all about the money. You know, Florida, there was a big challenge with midwives back when there wasn't government support and insurance and such. Doctors pushed midwives in Florida. Oh, you take the babies. There's no money. We don't want to fool with these, in people who have no money. We just are not interested in that. So you take them. And then when all of a sudden Medicare and Medicaid and, support came in, insurance came in, and they're trying to wrestle the babies back now, get rid of those midwives. They're terrible. And it's another money game. So it's all about waking up to human life.
Right.
Yeah.
Not not about only that, but you be responsible for them. But if anything goes wrong, your head is on the block.
Yes, another aspect
We're
of it
not
for
going
sure.
to be responsible for anything. Thank you so much. And
all right, young lady. Well, the show's going to cut us off any second now.
Okay, so keep.
All right. Be blessed. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Have the best year yet of your eternal life. It's an awesome gift to give the world. Blessings. Bye-bye.